When a woman looks you in the eye and says, "I'm fine, understand," she's rarely fine. Those two words can carry the weight of everything she doesn't feel safe enough to say, and the truth is, most men miss it. Not because they don't care, but because they're listening to what she says instead of tuning into what she feels. You see, silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's a quiet storm she's learned to contain. Women are taught early how to shrink their emotions to make others comfortable, to smile when something hurts, to say "I'm okay," even when she's drowning. That small phrase becomes a shield, a way of saying, "I want you to notice, but I'm afraid of what will happen if I show too much." She says it because she's been told she's too emotional, because the last time she opened up, someone mocked her softness or walked away when things got real. So now, she packages her pain into those two little words, hoping the right man will hear what she's not saying. But most don't. They take "I'm fine" at face value. They think the issue is resolved, that she's moved on, but inside, she's waiting, watching to see if you'll lean in or check out, if you'll ask her again, not because you're fishing for drama, but because you care. She hopes you'll pause and say, "No, really, what's going on?" Because that second question, that's when the truth starts to rise. Not always through words, but through tears she's been holding in, through silence that finally feels safe enough to break. And it's not about fixing her, it's about seeing her. She doesn't expect you to solve her problems. She just wants you to stand beside her in them, to hold her, not just physically, but emotionally, to be present when she's unraveling. The version of her that says, "I'm fine," is often the version that feels unseen, unheard, or unworthy of space. She's not lying to manipulate. She's minimizing to survive, and sometimes she's even testing you, not out of malice, but out of fear. She wonders if you'll notice the change in her tone, the drop in her energy, the way her eyes don't light up like they used to. She wants to be able to fall apart without being judged, to say, "I'm not okay," and not have that be a burden. But if every time she opens up she's met with indifference or impatience, she learns to swallow her pain and smile through it. So instead of "I'm hurting," she says, "I'm fine." Instead of "I feel alone," she says, "It's nothing." Because pretending is less painful than feeling like her truth is too much. You may not realize it, but your response in those moments defines more than the conversation. It defines the safety of the relationship. Women remember how you react when they're vulnerable. They remember if you stayed present or pulled away, if you asked a second time, or if you sighed in relief when she didn't open the floodgates. She remembers if your love made room for her silence or only for her strength. And maybe you think she should just be direct, that she should say what's on her mind, but vulnerability doesn't always wear bold letters. Sometimes it's whispered through hesitation. Sometimes it's hidden behind forced laughter. And sometimes it's wrapped up in two words that mean the exact opposite of what they say. So the next time she says "I'm fine," don't rush past it. Don't assume you've dodged a fight or escaped a breakdown. Pause, look closer, feel deeper, because that moment, quiet as it may seem, is a door, one that only opens when she feels emotionally safe. And if you miss it, if you dismiss it, if you walk away thinking everything's all right, you may never hear what her heart was trying so desperately to say. The most powerful connection you can offer her isn't found in the grand gestures. It's in the small, intentional moments where she knows, without question, that her silence still speaks and that her pain won't be ignored. She won't always tell you how deeply she needs reassurance, because part of her is scared you'll see it as weakness, that you'll mistake her need for closeness as insecurity, or worse, as emotional dependence. So she keeps quiet. She tells herself to stop overthinking, to not ask again, to not text twice, and instead of reaching for you, she turns inward, silently hoping you'll notice the distance she's too afraid to speak aloud. What she really wants is to feel chosen, not just once, but again and again, because being chosen one time isn't enough when the world around her constantly tries to convince her she's replaceable. She's not asking for constant validation out of fragility. She's asking because consistency builds trust, and trust for her is built on the little things, the "I miss you" without prompt, the forehead kiss before bed, the way your eyes still light up when she walks into a room. Those things, small as they may seem, tell her she's not just loved, but still wanted. You see, she's been through seasons where love started strong and faded fast, where people were captivated by her light but grew distant once the shine became familiar. She's learned that interest can be loud in the beginning, but often goes quiet when real life starts to settle in. And so now, even when she has a good man, a loyal man, a steady man, part of her still wonders, will he drift too? Will he get tired of me once the excitement fades? Will I become background noise in the very story I helped build? That's why reassurance matters, not because she's doubting you, but because she's battling voices that told her she wasn't enough. And some of those voices came from people she trusted the most. Maybe an ex who praised her one day and criticized her the next. Maybe a parent who only offered love when she performed perfectly. Maybe years of seeing other women celebrated while she was told to tone herself down. Whatever the origin, that wound lives deep, and reassurance, your reassurance, is one of the few things that helps it heal. But she won't always ask for it, because she doesn't want to seem needy. She doesn't want to be the girl who constantly asks, "Do you still love me? Do you still find me beautiful? Do you still want this?" So instead, she hides those questions in casual remarks. She softens her tone. She throws out small hints, hoping you'll catch them without her having to spell it all out. And when you don't, she doesn't get angry. She just gets quieter, not because she stopped caring, but because she doesn't want to be a burden. The truth is, your consistency teaches her more than your compliments ever could. When your actions match your words, when your affection remains steady even on ordinary days, when you speak love into her without being asked, that's when her walls start to fall. That's when she starts to feel secure, not just in you, but in herself. Because she's not just looking for a man who desires her, she's looking for a man who makes her feel emotionally safe. There's something powerful about knowing someone sees your unspoken fears and doesn't run from them. About feeling like your heart isn't too much to carry, that your past isn't too messy to hold, and that even on days when you're not your best, you're still loved fully. That's the kind of reassurance she needs. Not the loud, showy kind, but the quiet, steady kind that says, "You don't have to ask, I'm already here." So the next time she withdraws slightly or seems distant without explanation, don't take it as attitude or moodiness. It could be her way of saying she needs to feel closer to you, but doesn't know how to ask for it. Offer her presence, offer your words, let her know that your love isn't conditional, isn't fleeting, isn't only there when everything feels perfect. Because what matters most to her heart isn't how loud you love her in the beginning, but how gently, how consistently, how deliberately you remind her she's still the one, even after all this time. She won't always show you when she's jealous, not because she doesn't feel it, but because vulnerability feels riskier than staying silent. Deep down, she may feel that speaking up about it will make her seem insecure, dramatic, or controlling. So instead of saying "that bothered me," she bites her tongue. Instead of asking questions, she convinces herself not to overreact. And instead of letting the jealousy rise to the surface, she folds it into a quiet corner of her heart, hoping it'll disappear on its own. But jealousy doesn't vanish, it simmers, especially when she notices how your eyes light up a little too long around someone else, or when your attention lingers where it used to belong solely to her. She sees things you don't realize you're doing. She picks up on the energy, the tone, the shift, And even though she trusts you, even though she believes in what you have, there's a part of her that wonders if she's still enough to hold your full attention. She may not show it, but it stings, not because she wants to control who you talk to, but because love has taught her before that being the one can sometimes be temporary. She hides that jealousy because expressing it feels like too much of a risk. What if you roll your eyes? What if you tell her she's imagining things? What if you pull away instead of leaning in? That fear isn't just about losing you. It's about losing the sense of emotional safety she's fought so hard to build. So instead of showing her hand, she retreats, she smiles politely, she laughs it off, she tells herself it doesn't matter, but when she gets home, she replays it all, every detail, every glance, every laugh you shared with someone else. She doesn't want to compete for your attention, especially not with someone new. She wants to believe that what you've built together is enough to hold your focus. But when she sees you light up in someone else's presence, especially a woman, it can awaken something in her that she tries hard to suppress. Not because she's petty or possessive, but because she wants to be your safe place, your favorite place, your first thought. And in those moments, she questions if she still is. What's powerful to understand is that her jealousy is rarely about the other woman. It's about how you respond when it rises. It's about whether you notice her emotional shift without needing her to spell it out. It's about whether you're emotionally attuned enough to reassure her, not just with words, but with presence, because what she's really asking, beneath the silence, beneath the smile that doesn't reach her eyes, is simple: am I still your person? Do you still choose me even when you're surrounded by options? She knows how the world works. She knows there will always be beautiful women, charming people, tempting conversations. But she also knows how it feels to be the one who was slowly replaced while pretending nothing was wrong. That's why she guards her jealousy with silence. That's why she doesn't tell you when something feels off. Not because she wants to hide from you, but because she's trying to protect herself. If you love her, you'll learn to read between the lines. You'll notice when her energy shifts, when her responses become shorter, when her presence feels more distant, and instead of brushing it off, you'll get closer, you'll ask the questions she's too afraid to voice. You'll remind her, without needing a reason, that she's still your first choice, not because she asked, but because you feel when her heart needs it. You don't have to fix her jealousy. You don't even have to agree with it. But you do have to honor it, because even in her silence, she's trusting you with a piece of herself, a piece that says, I care enough about you to feel this deeply. I care enough about us to want to protect it, even from my own fears. And the truth is, when a woman hides her jealousy, she's not trying to manipulate you. She's trying to preserve the dignity of her love. But love, the kind that lasts, isn't built on unspoken tension. It's built on transparency, on tenderness, on your ability to reassure her when she can't find the words to ask for it. Because the strongest kind of relationship is one where she doesn't have to pretend she's unaffected, where even her silence is safe and her quiet fears are held, not judged. She won't tell you how deep her insecurities run, not because she doesn't trust you, but because she's afraid that if she shows you those hidden parts, you'll start to see her differently. You'll start to see the cracks instead of the beauty, the doubt instead of the confidence, the pain instead of the person. So instead, she keeps those insecurities close, hidden beneath the surface of her laughter, behind the way she carries herself like she's untouchable. But inside, there's a voice that whispers she's not quite enough. She doubts things you don't even notice. The way her body looks from a certain angle, the way her voice sounds when she gets too emotional, the way her skin breaks out when she's stressed. She wonders if you still find her beautiful without the makeup, without the filters, without the effort. And it's not vanity, it's fear. Fear that your admiration is tied to her appearance. Fear that one day You'll look at someone else and see something she doesn't believe she can compete with. She won't say it out loud, though, because she knows how it sounds. She knows you see her as strong, as composed, as independent. She doesn't want to ruin that image. She doesn't want you to think she's fishing for compliments or looking for attention. But the truth is, she just wants to feel seen, not just in the ways the world applauds, but in the quiet corners she hides from everyone else. There are days she looks in the mirror and picks herself apart, silently wishing she could be more toned, more clear-skinned, more something. And on those days she may seem a little more distant, a little more reserved. She might not reach for you the same way, not because she loves you any less, but because she's battling the part of herself that doesn't feel worthy of being fully loved. And she doesn't want to hand you her insecurity and watch you fumble it. So she keeps quiet. What she longs for is a kind of love that doesn't just praise her when she looks her best, but holds her even when she doesn't feel like enough. She wants you to notice when she's dimming her light, when she's shrinking, when she's carrying herself like someone who's forgotten she's magic. And in those moments, she doesn't need grand gestures. She just needs a look that tells her she's still beautiful, even in the raw, unfiltered, messy spaces, because her insecurities aren't just physical, they go deeper. They come from years of comparison, rejection, and criticism. From being told she's too loud or too sensitive or too complicated. From lovers who celebrated her body but never honored her soul. From people who praised her strength but never stayed long enough to hold her when she was weak. So now she builds walls, she smiles, she says, "I'm good." But underneath it all, she's quietly asking, will you stay if you see it all? The way you respond to her vulnerabilities, spoken or unspoken, matters more than you realize. Because when she shows you her insecurities, even in small, subtle ways, she's handing you the most fragile part of her. She's letting you see the parts she's not proud of, the parts she's learned to tuck away because the world told her they weren't lovable. And no, she doesn't expect you to fix it, but she hopes you'll hold it. She hopes you'll remind her that her softness isn't weakness, that her doubt doesn't make her a burden, that even when she feels small, she's still everything you want. Because when you love her insecurities instead of running from them, you give her permission to be fully herself. No masks, no pretending, no shame. The real beauty of a woman isn't in how flawless she appears, but in how deeply she can trust someone with the truth of who she is. And when she finds someone who sees her, not just the highlight reel, but the behind, the scenes, and stays, that's when she blooms. That's when her insecurities start to lose their grip, because she's finally loved, not in spite of her wounds, but with them. She'll tell you she trusts you, even when something inside her is screaming that something's off. Not because she doesn't sense the shift, not because she doesn't see the subtle changes in how you speak, how you touch, how present or distant you've become, but because she's trying to protect what she's built with you. She wants to believe in you more than she trusts the gut feeling she can't explain. And so, instead of confronting the unease, she tucks it away behind the words, "I trust you." You might hear that and think everything's fine. You might believe she's confident, that she's secure in what you share, but most of the time those words come from a place of hope, not certainty. She's hoping that her intuition is wrong, hoping that what she feels doesn't match what's real. She doesn't want to accuse you. She doesn't want to create drama. She doesn't want to seem paranoid or too much. So she silences the alarm going off inside her and offers you the benefit of the doubt, even if it costs her peace. What you may not understand is how sharp her intuition really is. She may not have proof. She may not be able to point to a message, a moment, or a mistake, but she feels it in the way your words lose their warmth, in the way your attention drifts, in how you used to reach for her without thinking, but now there's hesitation. She notices the pauses, the absence of effort, the slight withdrawal that others would miss, but she feels it like a temperature drop in the middle of a conversation. Still, she stays quiet, Because for her, bringing it up means risking being told she's imagining things, being labeled emotional or insecure, and that label, it hurts more than you know, because she doesn't want to be a woman who constantly questions her partner. She wants to trust you the way she did in the beginning, freely, without restraint. But when things shift, when energy feels off, she can't help but wonder if she's the only one still holding on the same way. She says she trusts you because she's trying to be the woman who doesn't nag, who doesn't overthink, who doesn't let fear ruin a good thing. But that silence, it's loud, and the longer it goes unacknowledged, the deeper it carves into her heart. She starts to doubt not just you, but herself. Am I reading too much into this? Is it just in my head? And that self doubt becomes a second battle, one she fights alone in the quiet spaces where her vulnerability lives. What she truly wants is for you to notice before she has to say it, for you to look her in the eyes and reassure her, not just with words, but with actions that match, for you to lean in instead of pulling away. She wants to know that her heart is safe with you, not just when things are easy, but when they get quiet, when uncertainty creeps in, when life starts to blur the lines between closeness and complacency. And when she finally does find the courage to say something, maybe in a small, hesitant voice, don't brush it off, don't get defensive, don't make her feel foolish for feeling deeply, because that moment is everything. That moment is where trust is either rebuilt or broken further. How you respond when she's vulnerable tells her more than all the promises in the world, because trust isn't just about loyalty, it's about emotional attentiveness. It's about whether you notice when her smile dims, whether you care enough to ask what she's not saying, whether you're the kind of man who makes her feel like her heart doesn't have to fight for a place in yours. When she says she trusts you, understand that those words are often a test of your consistency. She's waiting to see if you'll show up in ways that prove her intuition wrong, if you'll love her out of her doubt instead of pushing her further into it. And if you do, if you stay present, honest, open, she will meet you with a love that is deep, faithful, and unwavering. Because the moment a woman feels emotionally secure, her intuition no longer becomes a warning. It becomes a compass pointing her deeper into connection, deeper into love, deeper into you. She won't tell you how deeply she's starving for emotional intimacy, because somewhere along the way she learned to settle for less. Not because she stopped believing in love, but because she got tired of asking for what she rarely received. So she learned to be the strong one, the understanding one, the easygoing one, the woman who doesn't need too much, the woman who claps for your wins, gives you space, and tells herself that wanting more connection makes her too demanding. But inside there's an ache, a quiet hunger that never quite goes away. She craves more than surface-level conversations, more than daily routines and polite check-ins. She wants to be emotionally seen, not just acknowledged but understood. To be held not only when things are hard, but when everything is fine, simply because her soul needs that closeness, but she doesn't always say it, because in the past, when she did, she was met with silence, frustration, or withdrawal. So now, she folds her needs into silence and convinces herself that it's okay, that the distance is normal, that emotional depth is a luxury, not a right. She tells herself, at least he's loyal, at least he provides, at least he stays. And while all of those things matter, none of them fill the space where emotional connection should live. You see, she wants to be with someone who doesn't just hear her, but listens between the lines. Someone who asks her how she's really feeling, not just about the day, but about herself, her dreams, her fears, her heart. Someone who doesn't wait for her to break before showing up, but chooses to lean in even when she's quiet. But she doesn't push for it anymore, because in the past, when she voiced those desires, she was made to feel ungrateful, like wanting emotional intimacy somehow erased all the other good things, so she adjusted. She downsized her expectations, and in doing so, She became emotionally malnourished in relationships that looked full on the outside but left her empty on the inside. She may laugh, joke, and carry on like everything's fine, but underneath it all, she's wondering when someone will care enough to ask, not just, "How was your day?" but "How is your heart?" She wants that kind of intimacy that feels like home. The kind where silence isn't awkward but comforting, where tears aren't met with discomfort but with arms that hold her without needing a reason, where she doesn't feel the pressure to always be strong, but is allowed to simply be even when that means being messy, emotional, uncertain. And the irony is, she gives that intimacy to others so freely. She's the one her friends turn to, the one who listens without judgment, the one who holds space for everyone else's emotions while rarely having a space of her own. She knows how to pour, she knows how to love. She just hasn't always been loved with the same depth she offers so easily. What she's looking for isn't a man who shows up only in grand gestures or once in a while moments. She's looking for someone who chooses her emotionally every single day, someone who doesn't see her desire for connection as pressure, but as an invitation to build something real, something lasting, something that breathes even in silence. And when you do give her that intimacy, when you make room for her full emotional self, not just her smile, but her shadows, you'll see her come alive in ways words can't describe. Because women who feel emotionally safe don't just love harder, they love deeper, freer, without fear. When she no longer has to question whether her emotions are too much, she'll give you a version of herself that doesn't just stay. She chooses to stay fully, vulnerably, unapologetically, because emotional intimacy isn't a luxury to her, it's a language. And the moment you speak it, not with perfection but with intention, you give her something she's spent a lifetime believing she wasn't allowed to want: the freedom to finally stop pretending she's fine, and the safety to be loved exactly as she is.